that one's closed. So one's wide open, one's closed. Silly, isn't it? I don't know. Cough face. Let's get this off. Now, what I do tend to do with these, because the nut, although the nut is a nylock, they are incredibly loose. This one has been Loctited, which is good news, but you don't need any real force to get them apart. So there's the one, and underneath you've got a washer. Don't lose it, he says. There it is. And then underneath that, we're now going to have the crosshead screw, which holds the bimetallic strip in very tightly, it would seem. Fucking hell. Quite why it's that tight, I couldn't tell you. Probably thread locked. Right, there's the screw. And out comes the bimetallic strip and the plunger. And this is showing signs of fuel kind of going all over the place in here. Probably because it's open. So it's constantly got fuel vapour coming from the carburetor throat and going out through this. Coffee. So let's get the little tray, give it a wipe over. Give it a damn good kind of clean up. There's more of a chance of being able to detect a leak, even if it's just vapour leak from this area in the future. Now, set these things up to operate. I'm inclined to actually, because I haven't got boiling water here or anything, I'm going to set them so they both are closed but open up at the same rate. Right, that's done that one. Let me just spray some water here. There we go. Clothy McCloth face. That's the main body back and in reasonable order. I'll check my fibre washer box because I might have some fibre washers that size. Otherwise I'm going to have to get some, because these are flat, you see. An O-ring may well do the job, but I've got a feeling the O-ring's just too fat for it. Right, clean off the plunger. It's probably got all manner of shite all over it. Naturally wearing all my PPE, always do, swear by it. That goes in there, make sure it pops up and down nicely. Bimetallic strip can go straight back in. It's got a little cutout on the end there, by the way. Make sure the cutout corresponds to the groove on there. And bimetallic strip slots into plunger, drops down, groove, screw, U, 1, 2, was it that one? Might have been that one. Long screw there. That can then go back in. Tighten this bastard up. Right, we're done up. Put these screws that secure them to the carb body. Just make sure that the plunger does move, and it does beautifully. And then put nuts back on. Now what I tend to do is make sure I don't forget the little washer. I guess that's just there to protect the bimetallic strip. Put the nut back on, and I tend to do the nut up just until the plunger has closed, and I can see the plunger opening and closing here. Right, so that's the point it closes. Then once it's closed, then I can turn each of them another full turn, another half turn, whatever you want to do, in order to make sure that it's seated correctly. Let's look at the other one now. That's the one we just did. Gibbon. This one. So again, whoop. Right, as I undo the nut, I can see the plunger moving, so I know it's free. There's the washer. Screw. Bimetallic strip and plunger. All fuel. That is all fuel on there. So, and again, we can see an incredible amount of fuel inside the housing here. So either the carburetors were running very rich, we know they were, or there's a problem. Now, I think the problem is that the carburetors were running incredibly rich, and also that the float chambers were flooding. So this should be a relatively straightforward fix, and that's really just to get them set up, baselined, and then tune them when they're on the car. Whether you are running with temp compensators or whether you are disabling them is entirely up to you. They are supposed to give you a cleaner mix. Whether it really makes a difference on the car that probably does a couple of 100 miles a year, I couldn't tell you. Certainly when it comes to the emissions testing on a 1972 car in Britain, I think it's visible kind of emissions. So if you could see the emissions, then it's failed. If you can't, then it's a pass. And I think, to be honest, an MOT tester would have probably had a sniff around the exhaust on this particular car and said, no, that stinks of fuel, not having that. But strictly speaking then, they wouldn't have been able to fail it because petrol's not actually dripping out of the exhaust, if you get my drift. Right, let's clean the worst of it up anyway. Plunger, and then bimetallic strip, which is absolutely caked in here. Might give that a clean up as well. This might have been the carb that was running really badly. I think the jury's out really on how useful these things are. Certainly when you're not limited to getting the emissions down to 4.5% CO. Certainly on Range Rover Stromberg carbs, which don't have these devices fitted, I can get those running at 4.5% CO without too much difficulty. So then you've got to ask what these actually bring to the party. Which is why, somewhat controversially, I tend to wind them so they're closed. And they're both closed at the same rate. Right, that's in. Washer. Nuts. Yes, I am. You bastard. Yes. Get on there. Ha 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 ha. wind that up, and I can see, as I wind it, I can see the plunger coming up and up and up and up, and oh, it's going quite a long way, that. Let's wind it back down again. We've got it stuck. Let's just loosen this off a bit. If I just loosen the screw just to allow the bimetallic blade just a little bit more freedom. Winding up, winding up, winding, almost closed. Why is it not closing properly? It's because the plunger actually stuck in the tube, so we might have to take this apart again. Oh goody! The tube is sticky. The tube that the plunger sits in. There we are, wasted 28 seconds of time. Turn around a little bit, you can see what I'm doing. Bimetallic strip, so that plunger should fall out of there. There it's out now. There's some shit in there, isn't there? Right, I have got here a pipe cleaner. See if that's worked. It's a lot freer. I can, you know, well, it falls out, so you can tell it's a lot freer. So that's working better. Again, if it's not doing what you expect it to do, find out why. Don't just plough on. My gibbonry can educate you folks into not making the same mistakes. And some of you will be shouting at the telly right now, or the computer screen, saying, well, why didn't you clean it up before you put it all together? Well, I didn't know it was going to be all grubby, did I? Good point, though. Well made. Most articulate as well. Bum, 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 bum. Right, that goes in nicely. Plunger is open. And plunger is right, we're still not working properly. I'm actually inclined to wind these right in so they're both jammed shut. There's the washer. The reason being is while this now moves, you see it springing up and down, I would expect it to have a bit more openness when the bimetallic strip is there, and this is kind of where you need to get these things matched up a little bit. It's possible that the bimetallic strip in here is very slightly bent on the end. In fact, I can see it is already. This one hasn't got a bend halfway along. Let's see if we can get them so they both perform in much the same way. So, looking at it in its natural position, you can see it's curving down. That could just be that that is the way the bimetallic strip is behaving at this current time of day, but at 12 degrees I wouldn't expect that to be anything other than just sitting there doing fuck all. Right, bent it a bit flat, pop that back together. That's better, it's open now. Because when there's no adjustment on it, I would expect it to be open a millimetre or two. It's the way I start these things. Open. Right, now, washer, nut, do nut up, Right, now I can see as the nut starts to do up, so the plunger closes, just closed at that point. So I wind it back quarter of a turn, I can see it open. Actually see it popping open. So that's closed. This one, similarly, open, closed. Right, now comes the science bit. What I'm actually going to do, you're given, is wind each of them half a turn. Okay, closed. Half a turn and half a turn. And I'm actually going to leave them like that, and we'll see how they behave. I shall try them out in water and just check that they're not opening until we start getting some real temperature. But I think generally you don't want them to start opening until it gets to about 70 something degrees. I can't remember what the figures were now. It's on my bit of paper at home. But for now, that is kind of where I want these. Cover back on. I'm going to go and look at fibre washers next. I guess you could just bung up the hole inside the carburetor and be done with it. But what effectively happens is, I think it's that hole there, goes down this channel here and comes out on the side of this hole, and then there's a whacking great big hole in the side of the body, but between the needle, the meter needle, and the butterfly comes through there. So there's a whacking great big hole, and depending on where this plunger goes depends on how much of the air it allows from that whacking great big hole through and into the side of the carburetor on the butterfly side of the needle, meter needle. So it's just allowing additional air in under certain circumstances. There you go. These I tend to just do up, so it's not loose. It's certainly not loose there. There we are. Done up. I'm just going to pop these screws in. Oh no, so I need to find the washers, don't I? Right, I found these tinsy little fibre washers, which will probably do for the base inside here. Donk. And then I found a bigger fibre washer, which will go around the shoulder of that, and it will actually, looks like it will, anyway, seal this against the outside environment. Pop that on there. I need to get a whole load of them. So I'm going to order these up, but basically I'm guessing the plastic ones were better originally because they were. That's in there. See, that's sealed against the body and it's sealed against the base on the inside. Now, same thing on this carburetor, and then there's one more thing I need to do, and that's really to find the spacer for there. So I'll put that fibre washer in there. It is a bit fatter than the original plastic washer, but I'm not convinced it's going to do any real harm. I'll put this washer on here. It literally just seals it up against the outside edge of the flange. There we are. And I'm missing one star washer, so I'll go and find that. Bom, 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 bom. I think we're kind of ready to put these back on again. What are that screws for? Falling off something, isn't it? Right, star washer, and we're done.